The room stayed completely quiet. Everyone looked at Daniel. Vanessa's face had turned red. She looked angry, but she also looked nervous. Daniel stood calmly beside his chair. Especially certain people, he repeated. Vanessa folded her arms. What is that supposed to mean? Daniel looked at her for a moment. It means that for years my wife and I have opened our home to everyone. We have paid every bill, fixed every problem, and welcomed family members whenever they wanted to visit. He paused. But somehow some people act as if this house belongs to them. Nobody said a word. Vanessa laughed nervously. Oh, come on. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Daniel shook his head. No. What happened tonight is a very big deal. He turned toward Emma. My little girl was still standing beside her chair. Her eyes were full of tears. She looked scared and confused. Daniel walked over to her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Then he looked back at Vanessa. You told my daughter she doesn't belong at this table. Vanessa rolled her eyes. I said she could sit at the kids' table. No, Daniel replied firmly. You said biological family comes first. The words hung in the air. Everyone remembered hearing them. Nobody could pretend Vanessa hadn't said them. Vanessa looked around the room for support. She seemed surprised that nobody was speaking up for her. I was talking about tradition, she said. Daniel nodded. Then let me make something very clear. He smiled at Emma. Emma is our daughter. Emma looked up at him. His voice was gentle but strong. Not partly our daughter. Not almost our daughter. Not something less than our daughter. Our daughter. I could see tears forming in Emma's eyes. This time they were not tears of sadness. They were tears from hearing exactly what she needed to hear. Daniel continued. The day we adopted Emma, she became part of our family forever. He looked around the table. Anyone who cannot accept that is choosing to separate themselves from this family. My mother stared down at her plate. My father looked uncomfortable. Vanessa opened her mouth to argue again. Before she could speak, someone else surprised us. My uncle cleared his throat. I agree with Daniel. Everyone turned toward him. He rarely got involved in family disagreements. He looked directly at Vanessa. What you said was cruel. Vanessa blinked. Cruel? Yes, my uncle said. Cruel. His girlfriend nodded beside him. That little girl did nothing wrong. Vanessa looked shocked. Then my cousin Sophie spoke. I agree too. She smiled kindly at Emma. Emma belongs here. One by one, other relatives nodded. The support grew around the table. Vanessa suddenly looked very alone. For years she had been used to getting her way. For years people had stayed quiet when she acted badly. Tonight was different. Daniel pulled out the chair beside mine. He looked at Emma. Sweetheart, this seat is for you. Emma stared at the chair. Really? She whispered. Of course, Daniel said. It has always been for you. Slowly, Emma sat down. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. She leaned against me. For the first time since Vanessa's comment, she smiled. It was a small smile. But it was there. Vanessa pushed back her chair. This is ridiculous. Nobody answered. She looked at my parents. Are you really going to let them talk to me like this? My mother looked uncomfortable. Then she surprised me. Vanessa, she said softly, what you said to Emma was wrong. Vanessa's eyes widened. Mom, it was wrong, my mother repeated. You should apologize. The room became silent again. Vanessa looked like she could not believe what she was hearing. She had probably expected my mother to defend her. Instead, for once, she wasn't getting her way. I'm not apologizing, Vanessa snapped. Then that's your choice, Daniel replied calmly. Vanessa grabbed her purse. Fine. She turned toward her husband. Let's go. Her husband looked embarrassed. He glanced at Emma. Then he quietly said, I think you should apologize. Vanessa stared at him. What? You hurt her. The twins looked confused. They had been too young to understand most of the argument. But even they seemed to realize something bad had happened. Vanessa shook her head. I can't believe this family. She stormed toward the front door. A few moments later, the door slammed shut behind her. The house became quiet once again. Nobody moved for a few seconds. Then Daniel sat down. Now, he said with a small smile, can we please eat dinner before the turkey gets cold? A few people laughed nervously. The tension slowly began to fade. Plates were passed around the table. Food was served. Conversations started again. Little by little, the evening became normal. But something had changed. For the first time, people had stood up to Vanessa. For the first time, someone had clearly said that Emma belonged. As dinner continued, my father finally spoke. He looked at Emma. I'm sorry. The entire table became quiet. Emma looked surprised. My father took a deep breath. I should have spoken up sooner. He smiled sadly. You are my granddaughter. Emma's eyes grew wide. You are. My father nodded. Of course you are. A tear rolled down Emma's cheek. My mother reached across the table. So are you, she said gently. I know I haven't always shown it very well. She looked ashamed. But I love you too. Emma stared at her for a moment. Then she smiled. A real smile. The kind that lit up her whole face. The kind that made her look younger and happier. The rest of dinner felt different after that. People talked with Emma. They asked about school. They listened to her stories. They laughed at her jokes. For the first time all day, nobody treated her like an outsider. They treated her like family. Because she was family. After dinner, everyone moved into the living room. The children played games on the floor. The adults talked and drank coffee. I found Daniel standing by the window. I walked over and hugged him. "Thank you," I whispered. He smiled. "For what?" "For protecting her." Daniel looked toward Emma. She was sitting on the floor with my uncle and cousin, laughing at something silly. His expression softened. "I'll always protect her." I leaned my head against his shoulder. She needed to hear those words. "I know." For a moment we simply watched her. The little girl who had entered our lives 6 months earlier. The little girl who had spent years wondering where she belonged. The little girl who was finally learning that she had a home. A real home. Not a temporary one. Not a place she had to earn. A forever home. Later that evening, guests began leaving. They hugged us goodbye and thanked us for dinner. Several relatives stopped to tell Emma how happy they were that she was part of the family. Each kind word seemed to make her stand a little taller. When the last guest finally left, the house became quiet. Emma helped me carry dishes into the kitchen. As we worked, she seemed thoughtful. Finally, she looked up at me. "Mom." "Yes, sweetheart?" She hesitated. Then she asked the question that broke my heart. "Am I really your daughter?" I immediately set down the plate I was holding. Then I knelt beside her. I took both of her hands. "Emma, listen to me carefully." She nodded. "You are my daughter." I smiled. "You will always be my daughter." Her eyes filled with tears again. I brushed a curl away from her face. "There is nothing you could ever do that would change that." "Nothing. Nothing." She wrapped her arms around me. I hugged her tightly. A moment later Daniel joined us. He wrapped both of us in his arms. The three of us stayed there together in the kitchen. Just holding each other. Just being a family. And in that moment, I realized something important. Family is not made by blood. Family is made by love. It is made by kindness. It is made by showing up for each other when it matters most. Vanessa believed family was about biology. She was wrong. Family is about choosing each other every day. That Thanksgiving started with pain and hurt feelings. But it ended with something stronger. It ended with the truth. Emma belonged. She always had. And after that night, nobody in our family would ever question it again. Why we've allowed certain people to come into this house year after year while acting as if they own it, Daniel finished. The dining room became completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Vanessa stared at Daniel with wide eyes. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Daniel folded his arms. "I'm talking about respect." Vanessa laughed nervously. "Oh, please. You're making a huge scene over nothing." Daniel shook his head. "No. What happened tonight is not nothing." He looked toward Emma. My daughter was standing beside her chair with tears in her eyes. She looked small and scared. My heart hurt just looking at her. Daniel walked over and stood beside her. Then he looked back at Vanessa. "You told an 8-year-old girl that she doesn't belong with her family." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "I never said that." "Yes, you did," Daniel replied calmly. "You said biological family comes first." Vanessa crossed her arms. "That's just a fact." The room became even quieter. Several family members looked uncomfortable. Daniel nodded slowly. "Then let me tell you another fact." He placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. "This little girl is my daughter." Emma looked up at him. His voice was strong and clear. "She is almost not my daughter. She is not partly my daughter. She is not something less than my daughter." He smiled at her. "She is my daughter. Completely and forever." Tears rolled down Emma's cheeks. I could see how much those words meant to her. Vanessa opened her mouth to argue again. Before she could speak, Daniel continued. "The day we adopted Emma, she became part of our family forever." He looked around the table. "Anyone who cannot accept that does not understand what family really means." Nobody answered. Vanessa looked around the room, hoping someone would support her. Nobody did. My uncle finally spoke. "Daniel is right." Vanessa turned toward him. "What?" My uncle shook his head. "What you said was cruel." His girlfriend nodded. "It was very cruel." My cousin Sophie spoke next. "I agree." Vanessa's face turned red. She wasn't used to people disagreeing with her. For years, everyone had stayed quiet whenever she acted badly. Tonight was different. Daniel pulled out the chair beside me. Then he looked at Emma. "Sweetheart, this is your seat." Emma looked uncertain. "Are you sure?" Daniel smiled. "Of course I'm sure. That chair belongs to you." Slowly, Emma sat down. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. She leaned against me. For the first time since Vanessa's awful comment, she looked a little safer. A little calmer. Vanessa pushed back her chair. "This is ridiculous." My father cleared his throat. "No, Vanessa. It isn't." Everyone looked at him. Even Vanessa seemed surprised. "Dad." He sighed heavily. "What you said was wrong." Vanessa stared at him. "You can't be serious." "I am serious." He looked toward Emma. She's a child. Then he looked back at Vanessa. And she's your niece. Vanessa shook her head. That's not the point. That is exactly the point, my father replied. My mother lowered her eyes. She looked ashamed. Finally, she spoke too. Vanessa, you should apologize. Vanessa looked shocked. For years, she had always expected my parents to defend her. Now they weren't. The room felt different. People were finally speaking honestly. I'm not apologizing, Vanessa snapped. Daniel remained calm. That's your choice. Vanessa grabbed her purse. Fine. She looked around the room. If everyone wants to pretend I'm the bad guy, then maybe I should leave. Nobody stopped her. Nobody begged her to stay. That seemed to upset her even more. Her husband looked embarrassed. Before standing up, he turned to Emma. I'm sorry. Emma looked surprised. For what? She asked softly. For what happened tonight. Emma nodded. Thank you. The twins stood up too. They looked confused. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they knew the adults were upset. Vanessa marched toward the front door. A few moments later, the door slammed shut behind her. The loud sound echoed through the house. Then everything became quiet. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, Daniel smiled. Well, he said, the turkey smells amazing. A few people laughed. The tension started to disappear. People slowly sat back down. Food was passed around the table. Dinner continued. At first, the conversation was awkward. Everyone seemed unsure of what to say. Then my uncle asked Emma about school. She told him about her teacher. My cousin asked about her favorite books. Emma happily talked about the stories she loved. Soon other people joined the conversation. Little by little, the evening became warm again. For the first time all day, Emma was being included. Not ignored. Not pushed aside. Included. As we ate dinner, I watched her carefully. Her smile slowly returned. Every laugh made me feel better. Every happy moment helped heal the hurt Vanessa had caused. Halfway through dinner, my father set down his fork. Emma, he said gently. She looked at him. Yes. He took a deep breath. I owe you an apology. The room became quiet again. Emma looked surprised. You do? My father nodded. Yes. He looked sad. I should have spoken up sooner. He paused. I should have made sure you knew that you belong here. Emma listened carefully. My father's eyes filled with emotion. You are my granddaughter. Emma blinked. Really? He smiled. Of course. A tear rolled down her cheek. Then my mother reached across the table. And you're my granddaughter too. Emma looked at her. My mother sighed. I know I haven't always shown it very well. She looked ashamed. But I love you. For a moment, Emma didn't say anything. Then she smiled. A real smile. The bright smile I loved so much. Thank you, she whispered. The rest of dinner felt completely different. People talked and laughed. Stories were shared. Jokes were told. The house felt warm again. After dinner, everyone moved into the living room. The children played games on the floor. The adults sat together and drank coffee. I noticed Emma laughing with my cousin. She looked happy. Really happy. Daniel walked over and stood beside me. We watched her together. She's doing okay, he said quietly. I nodded. Because of you. Daniel shook his head. No. He looked toward Emma. Because she knows the truth. What truth? He smiled. That she's loved. I leaned my head against his shoulder. For several minutes we simply watched her play. The little girl who had entered our lives 6 months earlier. The little girl who had spent years moving from place to place. The little girl who had always wondered where she belonged. Tonight she finally had her answer. Later, as guests began leaving, many of them stopped to talk to Emma. My uncle hugged her goodbye. Sophie told her she couldn't wait to see her again. Even my parents spent extra time talking with her. Every kind word seemed to make her stand a little taller. When the last guest left, the house became quiet. Emma helped me clean the kitchen. We washed dishes together. After a few minutes, she looked up at me. Mom. Yes, sweetheart. She hesitated. Then she asked a question that broke my heart. Am I really your daughter? I immediately put down the dish I was holding. Then I knelt beside her. I gently held her hands. Emma, listen carefully. She nodded. You are my daughter. I smiled. You will always be my daughter. Her eyes filled with tears. Always. Always. What if I make mistakes? You'll still be my daughter. What if I get in trouble? You'll still be my daughter. What if I grow up? I laughed softly. You'll still be my daughter. A small smile appeared on her face. Then she wrapped her arms around me. I hugged her tightly. A moment later, Daniel joined us. He wrapped both of us in a big hug. The three of us stood together in the kitchen. Safe. Warm. Together. And in that moment I realized something important. Family is not about sharing the same blood. Family is about sharing love. It is about caring for each other. It is about standing up for one another when things get hard. Vanessa thought family was something people were born into. But real family is much more than that. Real families chooses each other every day. That Thanksgiving began with hurt feelings and tears. But it ended with something stronger. It ended with love. It ended with acceptance. And most importantly, it ended with Emma knowing exactly where she belonged. She belonged with us. She belonged in our home. She belonged at our table. And nobody would ever make her doubt that again.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ गए जो दिन सहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर बढ़ता है अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना बहुत ही दर्द भरता है मेरे साए भी मुझसे अब जुदा होने को कहते हैं तुझे खोने की राहों में ये आंसू बहने लगते हैं कहाँ जाऊं कहाँ ढूंढूं मेरा वो साजो सामा तो मेरी हर एक तमन्ना तू मेरी रूह का मका तू लकीरों में नहीं लिखा जो तुमने ख्वाब देखा था वफा की इस कहानी में फकत एक गम ही लिखा था सितारों से भी पूछता है पता तेरा कहाँ होगा मगर खामोश है दुनिया कहाँ मेरा जहाँ होगा बस एक बार मुड़ के देख ले मेरी बेबसी की सूरत मुझे है आज भी तेरी वफा की सख्त जरूरत साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर